One of the questions I have is, what do you think the future of training is going to be, OTS training? You know, what do you see? What's your vision for the future? I guess because it's about future technologies and everything, you know, or what do people in the room envision? You know, we'll ask the audience, a lifeline, right?
I'm thinking, well, honestly, I think we're kind of heading in that direction already, and I joke about the holodeck, you know, but I think that eventually we'll get closer and closer to exactly that. To actual simulations that are more and more immersive and actually puts the trainee into a situation to where it feels real, it looks real, it sounds real, and in that way it's indistinguishable from reality and the psychology of the human mind. So I think as we work closer and closer and closer to that, we'll be getting to the future. I don't know how far away we are from that. We just keep trudging along, right?
So I mean, from our perspective, when we're looking on this, I mean, OTS technology is established in the market, it's generating value, it's generating for greenfield and brownfield. I mean, you can calculate how do you get the benefits, but usually you can make the case. So, but when you're really looking on, okay, what will the long-term future envisioning bring for OTS? And there's one item to say how to change the price point, how to increase availability, so how to have scalability. I mean, there's maybe someone who got complete trained, and then he is sitting somewhere remote or is at home and just wants to have a little refresher on a pump or on a distillation tower. How do you do that? I mean, you cannot take the whole system with you. So, but you need to have an access to the system. You need to have a scaled access to the system for what you would like to do. So this is something we need to investigate and understand what is required and how to do it. And then the whole thing about crew training, about immersion, I mean, it's more about reality. We are very close to reality with the control room. We completely abandoned what happened outside. So that's when we have started 3 years working on the virtual reality, so 3D. So we made that step, and together with the Department of Energy, so we have the largest immersive training system in the world installed in Morgantown. It's a complete IGCC. So, I mean, it has, 4 chemical plants and 1 power plant in one, and it's completely interactive. So you have a virtual environment where, well, 5, 6, 7 avatars can work at the same time and can be trained in a scenario and interacting with the control room people. So you have everything from noise, we don't have smell, so but you have noise, light. So, and you have the real feeling, what is happening here? So, and how does the interaction work? So, how does a procedure work? I mean, how long does it take to get up the stairs to a certain level and to do a task and then get down and get another side of the plant? And this thing is huge. I mean, some of us, I mean, sitting in a control room is one item, but when you're outside, it's dark, it's cold, it's whatever, it's raining, and then someone says, go to valve 205 or whatever. Oh God, where is that? So, and you should have the spatial awareness and the understanding of your site. And everybody has all the time during the day or whatever, or in the spare time, just walk around and to familiarize with it. So, and therefore, this immersion, this extension to the new technologies, to the virtual reality, that's something where we think there is a trend. So there's a movement. We've started inventing this, and we will further go that. So. We will always make sure that the OTS system is as close to reality as possible. So it will be sophisticated, it will be first principle by definition, but we want to make the whole interaction with the system easier. I mean, at the moment you need to be an expert to set up the system, to maintain the system, to deal with the system. That needs to be changed. So it needs to be more easier. It needs to be more integrated with what you're doing in engineering. If you have a process model, why don't you use that process model to start working on an OTS? Why do you start from scratch again? So why don't you use the same model and thinking, okay, what could be happen in the future? So instead of doing the decision on the plants, changing set points, trying it in the simulator and getting the feedback on what is the commercial impact. So that's where we, as a vendor, are saying, okay, that's where we envisioning the future will go, and that's where we are driving our roadmap in that direction.
We have another question.
Yeah, I do have a question here. Paul Ganguly from Schlumberger. So Schlumberger is an oil field service company, and the activity was not as much as it has been lately, especially regarding hydraulic fracturing. And the most senior guy at the location is probably 2 years seniority in the company. And that poses a challenge of not being able to provide a long-term training or an intensive immersion or any of that. What you really need is just-in-time training. I'm thinking a little bit in the direction of Google goggles, that's getting used in BMW, shops where they're fixing things, and they get to see so learning at the job site. I would like to hear a little bit more about the thoughts and what we are thinking.
That was traditionally, our entire training program, from the beginning of the plant to the end. I mean, before we had the simulation, it was all on-the-job training, and you see a lot of that now. Personally, I couldn't fault it. I mean, what are you going to say? I mean, it worked for us for a lot of years. We had the benefit. The only thing I could say now is that then, even when we first built the plant, we had the benefit of consultants and experienced people coming in to kind of hold their hand and show them, okay, this is this type of valve, this is that, this is what you can expect. So they did have good industry training from the beginning. The real benefit that we have with now, with having the simulation is, we don't have to take that risk of having people on the job. We can actually simulate the process. We can have them make their mistakes because people learn by mistakes, and that's what happens. I mean, you got new operators in a new situation with no experienced people to ask. What are they going to do? They're going to be out there. They're going to be tracing lines down. They're going to say, okay, this line goes here. Here's this valve. If I isolate this valve, it's going to isolate this. They're going to do this. They're going to close it, and they're going to go, oh, shit, I should have closed that valve. And then boom, here you are in a process upset, which could cause a shutdown.
Sorry, maybe I missed the point there. I don't know if you have seen Google Goggles. If you look at YouTube and look at Google Goggles, you don't need any instructor, really. Once you put the goggles on, it starts to instruct you what you need to do next. So it goes through a set of training. As you're doing it, you don't have to search for things. It actually highlights and shows. And to me, that's a futuristic step. I mean, there is a cost for keeping somebody sitting and getting trained for a period of time, and a lot of times they actually tend to forget by the time they get to the location and they're going to do the job. And if they get it right when they need it, that actually sticks with them much better.
Is that picture-based, it's like search engine, where you take a picture of something and it...
No, it's not a Google search. It's basically a goggles that Google has worked on. Once you put that, you start to see what's the next tool you should be using, where you should be using it, how you should be using it. So it's a training.
Also, it's like procedure-based, like this step. That's cool. That's cool.
I think this can have a little bit of a discussion. I mean, and I'm always taking the analogic for training like car driving. I mean, I can learn car driving by reading the manual. That doesn't qualify me really driving car. So, and I could even say, okay, I'm reading the manual, and then I have a situational training, so an advisor who tells me how to drive. But if I do not have real training and flexed a little bit my muscles of car driving, I still wouldn't like to drive with someone who just got that training. So what you've mentioned, from my perspective, I would call it situational training. I would say is a very good item for refreshing. It's a very good item to take the pressure out of stress situations. So, but it will. I have a hard time to believe it will replace the real potential or the real training you need to do to flex or to get like flexing your muscles to get a reflex. You need, in order to understand the situation and to react intuitively, you need to do it 100 times. So, and even if someone tells you what to do, if you just have split seconds time for that, you can't think it through, even if it was told what you have to do. So, but the try to do it, the learning out of that, and then doing it all the time again and again. So, I mean, that is the advantage of a training. So then a situational training, as you have mentioned, I see is a very good refresher in remote locations when you're there, but I have a hard time to believe it can replace or will replace traditional training. So but that's my opinion.
And one thing I would add to that, I mean, as a trainer, I can tell you something like that. If you had a database that was plant specific and actually had your equipment and had your procedures built in, so it would actually be a reference point. I mean, I think that would be a beautiful thing for actual new trainees coming on site. What I would be afraid of is the same dependence on that technology. And I think that's what you'd have to try to wean it away from them. Because I mean, it'd be great as a reference, but I find myself, with my like Android phone, I'm walking around and you have the benefit of Google there all the time, right? So I can, you're having a conversation with somebody that uses a term or something that you're not familiar with, you can Google it real quick and be an expert in 5 minutes. And I found myself, because I've had these devices most of my adult life, so I got to where I depend on them and lean on them, and I've tried to be conscious of that at this point and try to wean myself away from it a little bit. And I think in the same way, you'd have to be cautious in that it'd be great to teach procedures and things, but you wouldn't want the operator to depend on them in case something happened and your database link went down or their batteries went dead in their goggles or something like that. You wouldn't want them in an actual critical situation to where time matters to lose their link and then be faced with a situation to where, oh hell, I can't remember what I'm supposed to do, you know. So I think a proper balance between teaching them to actually use it to teach them procedures and sure, let them keep it as a reference, but try to find a way to balance that with actual learning, I think would be. But as a learning tool, I think it sounds like a good idea. I really do.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
Okay, I was just going to add into that because so our company has 4 training simulators on ethylene plants. One that's been in operation for 16 years. It's basically a program in a polyethylene plant and a pipeline plant, all with training simulators. So the just-in-time training is a great concept for the refresher, and we got the guys that come in the back shift, and they'll sit down on the machine. They know how to actually start up the simulation. They know how to start up the initial conditions and throw a scenario at themselves. But it is only themselves. It's self-training. It's no different than following a recipe, and practice makes perfect, but you don't get perfect unless you have perfect practice. So the question that I have, and I'll ask Ron this specifically, is can you talk about the value that you bring to the table to talk and work through a discussion when they make that error, to sit back and say, what did we do wrong? What can we do better next time? And actually get that learning. Because that's what we're really talking about, is we're talking about learning. And that's, I think, where you really facilitate the role.
Absolutely. I mean, you could say, you know, I could say leaps and volumes about how dynamic the simulation is, how great it's been. To be able to turn people loose, because we have the same thing. We have people on the back shifts. That's why I really push to teach the supervisors and teach the operators how to run the thing, because I want them to have that opportunity on the night shift when they're not doing anything to be able to go back there and actually try to learn something. But you're exactly right in that if I just opened the room up and never went in there and never talked to them about their mistakes or the physics behind what was happening and why they were seeing. I mean, because you know, when you're just sitting there and you don't understand the processes or the physics behind them, what you're seeing is responsive-based operation to where, okay, this happens and this signal goes here, but I don't know why. And that is something that is absolutely critical, I think, in any training program, is to have that trainer to pause the simulation and say, okay, stop, you know. This is what happened. This is why it happened, and what could you do different to, you know, expect different results? And one of the things that's been great, I think, for us is, that I always do with all the trainees, is I try to take the controls out of it a lot. I mean, you know, you've got. I'll take the Boiler Master and Turbo Master. One of the last things I make them do is take them both to manual and drive the units to offline and bring it all the way back to base load in manual, so they are the controllers, at least the master controllers. I don't make them run all of them, but at least running the master controllers, just so they understand this is what this master controller is doing. These are what it's controlling. So, and I think getting them to do that by themselves, it'd be a travesty. So I think you're absolutely right. I mean, in that having a trainer there with them, especially at first. I mean, once you lay the foundation, you know, they can go do some self-directed stuff. I know some of our guys have been using it to go in, especially because we've got all these new guys in the control room, and a lot of times, you know, they try to match them up with an experienced guy, but that doesn't always work out. Some guy calls in sick. The only person they get a hold of is this new, you know, guy that wants to come to work, make some money. So, anyways, you've got those two guys in there, and then they think, you know, 2 hours later, oh, I got to bring a mill off. You know, like, oh crap, I haven't done that. And usually I have so and so standing over my shoulder, you know. So they'll run back to the simulator, take a mill off. Okay, I feel good, and then go out there and do it in the real world. And that's been a real benefit as well. But that was after, you know, laying the foundation with a trainer there present. So. But that's the hope of my AI engine, by the way. I hope to have that AI director to kind of push it on them.